Procrastination is truly my best friend, my twin, and sadly my enemy. Especially as an art student, procrastinating is always a gamble, and call me an addict because I'll always take my chances. Most recently, for my painting class, a week before my critique, I had to paint non-stop if I wanted to finish this painting in time. And I thought it would be an amazing idea to bring y'all along with my panic. Morning everyone, grab a snack, your sketchbook, your wand, and enjoy. I started off my base with a neon pink since I thought it would be a nice color to peek through the layers. However, I underestimated my insane use of layers, so you weren't able to see the neon pink at all once I was done, and I just added some tints here and there to act as if it was peeking through. Since my reference picture was insanely detailed, I decided to paint a 1 inch by 1 inch grid over my 24 by 36 inch canvas. Even though this grid was insanely helpful in the long run, it was so annoying to paint on initially. Since the paint got all over this big ruler I was using, it kept getting everywhere on the canvas, so there was like a bunch of marks I didn't want, and it was just annoying. But because the people I draw on later were just tiny, the faces were extremely tiny, so the grid actually helped with that. Looking back at this footage, I actually really liked the look of the monochromatic painting with the grid underneath it. I sort of wish I left it as that because that to me looks way cooler than my end product. Maybe I'll paint something else with that as the main base of having a grid underneath a monochromatic painting, but probably something smaller than a 24 by 36 inch canvas. My reference picture was a collage I made after photo bashing a bunch of vacation pictures I had of my sister and I at Universal. Specifically the trolls section, and there were these flower pods you could go and sit down in. I'm pretty sure these were only meant for tiny kids because I remember barely fitting in there. Since we were surrounded by these trolls, literally, I added trolls all around the painting and tried to size them to fit the perspective. When the third Trolls movie released, my sister and I were obsessed with all the movies to the point we bought blind bags of trolls. That came in handy since I was able to take photos of these tiny toys and then change the hue and copy them wherever on the floor. During this time, I also needle felted Poppy from the movie, and honestly, I need to do Branch soon. My idea back then was to needle felt all of the trolls, but I wasn't able to do the rest. One day I will, I swear. It was so fun making Poppy. I need to do more needle felting. Anywho, I was able to use my Poppy and move her into different positions, from standing, sitting, and fully laying down, and move her across the board. So I used the same Poppy stand-in to use as a troll leaning against my pod and my sister's pod, and even some trolls laying in the background. You can see them later on. I actually wish Universal made a bigger DreamWorks land because the area was just so small. It was basically hidden away and mashed way too many characters and worlds into one tiny area. But I'm definitely biased because I would love a full-blown roller coaster and even a boat ride for trolls. They had one ride for trolls, but it was for kids since the ride wasn't long at all and there wasn't any crazy turns. It was so fun nonetheless. I remember screaming a little bit with my sister, which was dramatic since all the other seats were filled with parents and their kids, and I don't remember hearing any of them scream. This was a couple years ago though, so they could have changed that whole area, and I'm feeding y'all bad information. I do remember the ice cream. It was really good, but bad idea overall since it was melting everywhere and my hands became all sticky. It was just a mess. But the taste was pretty good. I also met my idols. We got there just in time to meet Branch and Poppy in person, and honestly that made the trip. I made a celebrity too actually, and I'll always cherish that moment. I actually really liked photo bashing the picture a lot more rather than painting the thing, because I think trying to translate my idea using pictures I already had in my camera roll was just so fun to do. But then trying to translate that photo bashed picture with acrylic paint was just, it just wasn't clicking in my brain. I think the colors was just really hard to do because I wanted to do a very saturated painting for this. Since it was trolls, I was like, oh, it's rainbows, like that's all they're about, color. So I really wanted to amp up all the colors. But then once I amped up all the colors, well, all the colors were amped up, so it looked very strange. And I kind of wish I left maybe like the background monochromatic blue or like duller colors compared to the foreground. I honestly think the only thing I really was satisfied with at the end was my sister and I, and how I painted us in there. Even though the process was tedious, I hated doing these tiny people because painting on such a small area and trying to get really detailed was just hard, especially with the brushes I had. Like, I was contemplating getting a brush and just cutting most of the bristles out because I just needed a tinier brush, but I didn't. All my brushes are safe. I didn't hack any of them up, but I was very tempted to, and I just dealt with what I had to work with, and it came out pretty good in the end. But I still wish I was able to get a bit more tinier details, especially around the face. I feel like the faces were very hard to do, and I repainted them so many times, and even now I feel like they're a little wonky in places. Like, there's definitely a likeness, like you can tell who they are and who they're trying to represent, but I feel like the eye is a little shifted down, or maybe like an eyelid's weird, or like an eyebrow. I'm not sure. I mean, it's pretty good. And then the pods, I think the pods were actually my favorite part in painting all of this. I would love to redo this painting on like maybe a smaller canvas and just do us in the pods, and that's it, because painting that was just so satisfying with the colors, especially mine, because mine's neon pink, and this is a little cut in of where I was at this time. I forgot how many days this was that we were already in, but I was really satisfied with the pink because I had to mix my neon pink in with some red I was using. I'm not really sure, but even with my sister's blue pod that comes up later, I really liked mixing the colors for that. And the green with the stem, I liked doing the gradient between the light green and the dark green on top with the leaves. I just thought it looked scrumptious, like I want to eat them, like I could take them out and eat them. I think the skin tones were also sort of hard to pinpoint just because my photo bashing, the shadows just did not make sense throughout the whole thing, just because I mashed up two different photos, because this is me and my sister in the same pod, but we just took photos of each other, so there wasn't one whole picture of both of us side by side in two separate pods. No, this is me photo bashing it, and I think the shadows were just very wonky in my picture, and I didn't really think about changing them. I kind of just went off what the picture was, but honestly I feel like maybe it added a more fantasy vibe at the end, because it was very, I want to say surrealist, but I don't think that's necessarily the right word, but I'm gonna use it. It feels right. And the flowers on the bottom, there was only one flower in the actual picture, the full flower, which you can see on the very back towards the right. The flower back there, that's the only actual flower, and I just copy and pasted it around the other areas because I just felt the floor was too empty, like there was barely anything there. And that's also why I added the trolls, because I wanted to fill in space but not too much, so them being tiny really helps with the composition. I remember painting the shoes. The shoes were also my favorite part because it was just so nice to go in with one of my tiny brushes and do one quick swipe of it, because it was dark shoes and it was just 2 colors. That's it. That's all the shoes were, just 2 colors, and I was able to do it really quick and it was very satisfying. And this is me refixing my face, and I swear I repainted my own face probably 6 times, like having to go back and redo my eyes a couple times, redo my nose I think only twice. I redid my mouth like a few times because I would just make it too big and then too small. You'd think it would be a little bit easier on a smaller area, but actually it's tougher. It's very hard to do. I also wasn't ready to do my sister because she's kind of bigger in the composition, so I thought maybe it would be easier to do her, but she also has glasses, so I wasn't prepared mentally to paint those on her just yet. Also, during this whole time I'm painting, I was binge watching this crime show I found on Netflix called Rizzoli and Isles, and if any of y'all have watched that show, it's so good. Like I cut out a lot of footage of me mixing my paint and then me looking away. There's also a bunch of times I was eating while I was painting and I cut all that out, but there was so many times while I was painting, I would watch the TV show, like I would look at my TV and I'm just crying or I'm just like tearing up, or I have like a frown or something, and I was like, oh my god, I didn't realize how many times I was crying at the show. But honestly, deserved, because at every single episode something would happen, and I'm pretty sure I finished the show while I was finishing this painting, and it was just an emotional time for me because that show was just so good, and I love that it actually had an ending, because a lot of shows I watch just are canceled and they don't have an ending, and I get just so mad. But I'm pretty sure Rizzoli and Isles ended off on a good note. Again, this was so long ago and I don't remember it since I binge watched it in like 1 month probably, but I think it had a good ending. I'm also just such a sucker for crime shows that each episode they have like a new case, and they're just like a great family, like found family as like the group who figures out the cases, and that one was just a big found family. Oh, and I loved it. Alright, back to the actual painting. This is me painting my sister finally, and she has curly hair. I mean, we both have curly hair, but hers was out and long, and you can actually see it in the photo. And this was just so fun to do, bro. Like, I need to do more paintings with curly hair, because figuring out how to do that texture was so fun. And honestly, I think I did an amazing job. That was another favorite part of my process doing this, was doing her hair, especially since her hair was dyed at the time. It still is, but it's like a purple periwinkle color, I think. I don't remember. It looks purple periwinkle. It was just so fun, especially to do that color against the black of the rest of her color. It was fun. And even doing her bangs, I also was trying to think of what to do with the trolls, because in my photo I changed the hue of some of them, so they're all different colors. However, I am not a good planner in the sense that I did not know how I was going to replicate those colors using my acrylics. Because spoiler alert, some colors you see on your like phone or whatever, your iPad, whenever you use Procreate or any other drawing app, you can't, some colors you're not able to mix IRL just because for whatever reasons. Especially me, since I was doing all of this with the primary colors. I don't know what specific colors I was using, I don't remember, but I remember I was just using a red, blue, and a yellow, and then white, obviously, and then I mixed in the neon pink here and there, 2 different colors. Like I remember I did some passes of it on the skin, and especially my sister's hair, and then obviously my troll pod and the trolls here and there. But yeah, I don't think I used any black. I don't like using black. And then, oh my god, glazing medium. I was using the slow drying. Okay, this is more on the technical side. If you're also a painter, this is helpful. If you're not a painter, well, you're just gonna hear me just yap a little bit about my process. This slow drying medium I use from the Golden brand is so good. Honestly, I love using it. I use so much of it, honestly. It's insane that I had to buy a big tub of it because I was just going through it so fast. And I think through my semester of my painting class, I probably used 3 refills of that one squeezy bottle. I forgot how much it is in there, but that's basically how much I be using every single time I paint, because it just makes your paint coverage so much smoother, and you can use a lot. It just covers a lot more area for little paint you actually use, if that makes sense. I don't think I'm explaining that just right, but here's me doing my trolls finally, and I am just YOLOing it actually, because I also did not have a plan on the dresses, because every troll was wearing like a type of dress or like outfit. But when I changed the hue on Procreate, it would usually change it to green. Like most of these trolls in my photos had like a green dress, and or just their own, like that purple one I think had like a purple dress, but I didn't want it to just be a block of purple. I want them to have different colored dresses. But I didn't know which colors to pair with each other, and especially with the colorful flowers underneath. I also had to take that into account, and especially since I didn't want certain colors to be right next to each other. It was just a big old me looking at it and thinking, and then not really knowing what to do. But going on with the other trolls, I'm doing the one next to my sister, and I remember that one giving me such a migraine, because I think the color I picked is kind of ugly, honestly. Like I did a flower crown on her because that's what Poppy has, but I did like way too much. Like you can see that's like a band of purple, and it's too much. It was detailed, and I wish I just hadn't done it. I wish I left her bald. I wish it was just a simple like hair tie on her hair, and that was it. I was also doing, I think, the middle flower, and I was like, oh, what if I had the flower petals reaching out and actually going beyond like the circle that they're on, because the actual structure at Universal is just like a big circle, and it has like a flower pushed out of it, but it's not like spilling out or anything, right? But I thought, oh, what if it was like spilling out, and then there'd be like pollen dancing up in the air? So I added some stippling with the back of my brushes, like the little handle part. So I was able to do that, and then I did it with the rest of my flowers and the trolls. I did like little dots above the trolls, so it was like emanating like not pollen, but like magic, I guess you can say. I don't know if you're able to see it in the video. I think you can see it with the flowers, but the trolls, I think, are just too tiny. You can't see those tiny dots. But alas, they are there. You'll see them at the end. Just trust me on that, okay? With the trolls, I also think I want to say deleted, but I don't think I painted like 1 or 2 that were in my photo. And just because I was sick of it. I was just sick of painting these trolls. Like, I think it was around right here where I was just done. And funny enough, I become even worse later on, and you'll see why. But yeah, I just wanted to get it over with. I think mixing these tiny portions of paint was just also very annoying because I didn't need a lot of whatever color I was using to finish a troll. But alas, oh my god, this is where I do the ground. Now, I knew I wanted to reincorporate the grid back into the final piece, so I painted a light green like grid on the floor and added a texture using my sponge to make it look like grass, even though IRL it was turf. It was like it was smooth. It wasn't like actual grass or anything. But I don't know how I feel about it. I really like the effect it made, but if I were to do it again now, I would keep the grass smooth. I think the texture just made the overall painting way too busy. And with an already detail centered piece, I should have left that area to be a place of rest for people's eyes whenever they look around my painting. I think the next part I was painting was the cinder block seating area in the back. I really like the purple I used. I also really like the technique, I guess you can say, I was using to paint it. Sadly, it does not stay, and you'll see why. Like, I had to repaint that whole area. But it's like, it was just so pretty. It was such a pretty purple, and I really liked how I shaded it. But alas, this is me actually going in the background, and speaking of the details of this piece, most of it is in the background because of the roller coaster and different structures that are around the Trolls Land, like this canopy that was just a full-on rainbow. There's also these flower sculptures. I'll say they're sculptures. They're like big light posts, but not actual light posts, and they're like flowers at the top. I don't know how to describe it. There's actual light posts in the area too. And the roller coaster, oh my god, there were just so many lines, like just straight up lines in the background. And I thought it was a good idea to paint everything I saw, for the most part. Starting the background, I pieced it into 3 different areas, the left, right, and center, because it gets separated by my sister and I's troll, so it was just easy to handle if I were just to do one section, the next, and the next. And the technique I used, I did a type of swirly stippling technique in the back, but I wasn't able to make it look as good as the first third of the background, the left side. And I don't know why trying to color match the first part was just too hard. However, I persevered and continued, even though it was completely different blues in the other parts of the background. And this is where I'm going in with the orangey peach color for the roller coaster and the flower structures in the back. And I really liked the color palette for those colors, like the orange and like the yellows, the purple with in the tree branches, the purple with the seating arrangement, and the dark bit that you can see. It was like I don't know how to describe it. It was like a canopy almost hanging over us. But I just thought it was way too blue, and the technique I used did not match well with the rest of the painting. So I thought it was a good idea to put a layer of yellow in the background to make it have a yellow tint. I think it would have worked if I incorporated the yellow in the actual paint rather than as a filter. But again, it was the technique I used that made it look just so bad. Like it looked like two separate paintings, honestly. So I decided to scrap the whole background and repaint it, which was just so painful to do because this was the last day I had to work on it before the critique. I still think my painting on top of the background, it was just still way too saturated or blue. I don't know. I think I just wish I did something or literally anything else. I don't know. I really liked the technique I used in the beginning, like that swirly technique, and I will and have definitely incorporated in other paintings I've done, but it just wasn't the type, it just wasn't the mood, I guess you can say, for this specific painting. And especially because I was on a time crunch, I was just like, let's just get it over with and just repaint the whole thing. And you can see me blow drying my hair while painting this because since this was the last day, I was on a time crunch and it was already night and I was already panicking, and I was like, we have to get through this. I've never shown up to a critique with my painting like half done or parts of it not done. It's usually been like 99% done. So I was like, I'm not breaking my streak right now. We're getting through this, even if I had to stay up a little bit more, which I did. So I finished the background, and honestly, I don't even know what to say. It was just really annoying to work on, and the end wasn't really what I imagined it was gonna look like. And I think when I finished it that night, I was like, oh yeah, this is good. This is so good. We did amazing. And then the next morning I woke up and I was like, right, this actually looks kind of rushed actually, and kind of weird. But enough of me yapping. Let's see what you guys think. And here's the finished piece. Please let me know what you think. I mean, I've been yapping about how I don't like it that much, but it's like a couple days later I'm like, it's growing on me, but not really. I don't know. My final thoughts are that I wish I did many things different during the process of this painting. However, I learned many things that I can use for my future paintings, so it wasn't a complete waste of time. Alright, that's it. Thank you for accompanying me on this journey, and good night.